Sarah Everard was a woman, unfortunately, who's no longer with us. And there's a very interesting story that is percolating over in England that involves this young lady who was kidnapped and killed by a police officer who works in London. And so they have a lot of the same problems that we do here in the United States, unfortunately. Let's take a look and dive in. We're going to go through a little bit of background on Sarah Everard. She was 33 years old, beautiful young lady, and she's no longer with us. And this is something that could be very explosive for the police department. And so we're going to go through, learn about the timeline, learn about who she is. We're going to tell you about the investigation that's taking place in Europe. I'm not licensed to practice law in Europe, but we are going to go through it sort of as we would develop a regular criminal case here in the United States. Just keep that in mind that I do not practice law in the UK, and so things are naturally going to be different. All right, so let's take a look at Sarah Everard. This is who she is. A couple very nice pictures here from her. She was 33 years old, originally from York before moving to London 12 years ago. Marketing manager, last seen on Wednesday, March 3rd, so about 2 weeks ago. Sarah moved to the capital for work about 12 years ago, has a brother and sister who also live in London, so they are without their sister. A couple pictures here, won a nice medal at a marathon or something like that. Find Sarah. So CCTV, let me make sure, CCTV from near 33-year-old's home shows no sign of her returning to her flat where she lives on the night that she vanished. So here's the CCTV camera that you see here. So apparently they monitored it. Normally she would walk down this way and she didn't go home. She goes missing after leaving a friend's house in Clapham, South London, about 9 p.m. Sarah should have returned home near Brixton about 50 minutes later with police unclear on whether she made it back. CCTV footage from a local estate agent shows no one matching Sarah's description between 9:30 and 10:30 on the route police believe she would have taken home. So she was at a friend's, says, I'm leaving. They sort of recreate the timeline. She should have passed through here between 9:30 and 10:30, and she didn't. Camera has a clear view of both sides of the busy road on Brixton Hill, which is a closed flat which is close to the flat where the marketing manager lives alone. And so this was on Wednesday, March 3rd. Okay, so she goes to a friend's house and she is not returning home on March 3rd. We can see the date here at about 8:15. So they're looking from 9:30 to 10:30. They don't find her. Then we fast forward, March 6th. So 3 days go by. Metro Police issues an appeal over her disappearance and they release a CCTV image of her. Police said she was thought to have walked through Clapham Common after leaving her friend's flat and heading towards her home. The journey should have taken around 50 minutes. So they're they're reconstructing the timeline. Let's go through this. We have Sarah left her friend's house 9 p.m. on March 3rd. Sarah Brixton's home is a 50-minute walk from her start point. She is thought to have crossed through Clapham Common and was last seen on CCTV around Poinders Road around 9:30 p.m. A week later, officers searched a woodland near Ashford in relation to her case, as well as a property in Deal on the southeast coast. So they're searching around for her. So theoretically, you would say she would have walked, right through this commons and walked home. It's a 50-minute walk from her starting point. And it's late at night. And we have to look up these dates. What was March 3rd? Was that a weekend? Was she drinking? Was she out, having a party with her friends? Was walking home because she didn't want to drive home? I don't know how things are in this area in England, whether that is a common thing or maybe not. Maybe she was just there, having some fun. None of that was going on. Doesn't really matter either way, but it is interesting. Sunday, March 7th. So the next day, police released footage taken from a private doorbell type camera showing that Miss Everard walking alone at 8205 Poinders Road toward Tulse Hill, south of Brixton. It's unclear if she reached home. She was last seen wearing a green rain jacket, navy blue trousers, white diamond pattern, turquoise and orange trainers, and was thought to have been wearing green earphones and a white beanie hat. So this is her last sighting of Sarah on CCTV around 9:30 p.m. The investigation into her appearance is being led by Scotland Yard's Specialist Crime Command because of the complex nature of the probe, which combines searches with house-to-house inquiries. So just a major, major search. So a couple of days, that's on Sunday the 7th. Then on March the 8th, we have more. Detective Chief Inspector Catherine Goodwin, who is leading the investigation, said, this is definitely a missing person investigation at the moment, but I remain open-minded to all possibilities. 750 people have now been spoken to find her. They've trawled through hours of CCTV camera. DCI Goodwin has appeared for anyone with footage to come forward, especially anyone driving along the road. The evidence that you have on your dash cam could be absolutely vital to finding Sarah. Specialist officers have been drafted in from across the Metro Police. We all are looking to try to find Sarah as quickly as possible. It's understood detectives investigating her disappearance have been told of assaults on women in the area. January, Metro PD received report of sexual harassment. At the start of February, a woman was witnessed being chased by a man just over a mile away. Just 3 weeks ago, 14-year-old girl, similar situation. Meanwhile, other women reported groups of men following a woman in neighboring district in Balham. Scotland Yard said, so far, it's not linking the disappearance to any of the other incidents. It comes after alarmed women living in the area revealed police urged them to be vigilant after the mysterious disappearance. One said cops knocked on her door last night and warned her not to go out alone as they desperately try to piece together what happened. So they're actually knocking on people's doors over there. Tuesday, March 9th, 1 week ago, sniffer dogs search gardens in streets and near a search site near Miss Everard's Invisage route home near the Oaklands estate. They search a pond, so they're looking for her. Fresh images are also released of her wearing a coat in which she disappeared. Later that day, Met sets up a cordon, and Met sounds, I think, Met is the name for the police. So it's like the Metro Police, they call them Met instead of Metro. Housing complex on Poinders Road is part of the search with forensics officers seen examining the area. Missing posters goes up. Please help. Our dear friend, Sarah Everard. Last contact, 2128, Wednesday, March 3rd. Wearing this green waterproof jacket, 33 years old. Missing posters have been issued. She had this phone, these shoes, these pants you can see here. And its story goes on. Midnight, March 9th, Met police officer arrested in Kent over the Sarah Everard disappearance. What on earth? A police officer is arrested for it? What? Police officer has been arrested in connection with the disappearance. Officers arrested him at the address in Kent last night, March 9th. He has been taken into custody at London Police Station where he remains. A woman has also been arrested at the same location on suspicion of assisting an offender. She has also been taken into custody at a London Police Station. Assistant Commissioner Nick Epgrave says the arrest of this evening is a very serious and significant development. We will continue to work with all speed on this investigation, but the fact that the arrested man is a serving Metro police officer is both shocking and deeply disturbing. Yeah. I understand there will be significant public concern, but it is essential that the investigative team are given time and space to continue their work, which typically is code word for we're not going to tell you anything about the guy, not going to reveal much information about him if we can help it. Wednesday, March 10th, the Mets, the police, revealed the officer arrested on Tuesday was not on active duty at the time of her appearance, but Com Epgrave initially refused to provide details of the offense on which the officer has been arrested on suspicion of or how long he has served on the force. Of course, we all knew that was coming. Detectives began searching 2 locations in Kent, including a property in Deal and Woodland near Ashford. A tent was erected outside a house. Car being seen taken away from the property. ITV News told a police officer lives at the address with his wife and 2 children, said they just seemed like a normal, regular family. There was nothing strange about them at all. Miss Everard's uncle, Nick, talks to the media to say that the family are distraught. Things are utterly dire, waiting for positive news from the police. So he's arrested. We have not identified where she is or what happened yet. Afternoon on Wednesday, March 10th, Scotland Yard confirms that the police officer has been arrested on suspicion of murder. So this is the guy, very bad police officer that we, as far as we can tell, currently, is being alleged to have committed this crime, but it seemed like they are pretty clear about it. He is later identified as Wayne Couzens, 48-year-old, serving in the force's Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command. Wow, that's a name right there. Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command. He was held on Tuesday evening on suspicion of kidnapping before being further arrested on suspicion of murder and a separate allegation of indecent exposure. The PO arrested in the Sarah Everard case, Wayne Couzens, age 48, married and living in Deal, was a car mechanic until 10 years ago, based at Westminster, and would know the SC well, obs. It's been suggested by a source that he may have been lodged at a CP estate. So yeah, it looks like the same guy there. Human remains, though, were found on Wednesday evening in Kentwood. Human remains have been found in the search for Sarah Everard, made in an area of Woodland, Ashford, and Kent. We're not able to confirm any identity. That may take some considerable time, which means that the remains are beyond recognition. So somebody was trying to, of course, cover up the crime by eliminating the body, which is Not good. Morning, Tuesday, March 11th. Police are continuing to question the officer arrested. Afternoon, March 11th. Metro PD reveals he has been taken to a hospital. Suspected of kidnapping and murdering. He has been taken to a hospital for a head wound sustained while in custody. What? Scotland Yard said the suspect was treated, discharged, and returned to the police station. Miss Everard's family said she was kind, thoughtful, caring, and dependable. They appealed for information about the 33-year-old's disappearance. The police watchdog announced it launched an investigation into whether Metro police officers, quote, responded appropriately to a report of indecent exposure following referrals linked to the arrest. Independent Office for Police Conduct, IOPC, said its independent probe follows conduct referral from the force, linked to 4 other referrals. Then the afternoon, Friday, March 10th, so this was last week, police confirmed the missing woman's body is found. Sarah Everard was identified late last week. Earlier, speaking outside Scotland Yard, Assistant Commissioner Nick Epgrave gave a televised update on the police inquiry. As you know, Wednesday evening, detectives investigating the disappearance of Sarah Everard discovered a body. Here he is explaining the story.
As you know, on Wednesday evening, detectives investigating the disappearance of Sarah Everard discovered a body secreted in Woodland in Kent. The body has now been recovered and a formal identification procedure has been undertaken. I can now confirm that it is the body of Sarah Everard. Clearly, Sarah's family have been updated with this most distressing news, and I just want to pause for a moment and say that my thoughts and prayers and those of the entire organisation remain with her and with them at this awful time. Specialist officers remain in constant contact with Sarah's family and will continue to support them throughout the investigation and beyond. That investigation continues at a pace, and we have hundreds of officers working round the clock to establish the full circumstances of Sarah's disappearance and her murder. And the man remains in custody at a London police station on suspicion of committing those crimes. I know that the public feel hurt and angry about what has happened, and those are sentiments that I share personally, and I know my colleagues here at Scotland Yard and across the Met share as well. I also recognise the wider concerns that are being raised quite rightly about the safety of women in public spaces in London and also elsewhere in the country. I want to say now that this organisation and the men and women in it remain committed to protecting Londoners wherever they are in this city. And that commitment is undiminished by these events, and if anything, that commitment is strengthened by these tragic circumstances. Thank you very much.
All right. So, a nice statement, pretty, standard stuff there. Obviously awful, just awful. I understand the need to stop and mourn for people who we have lost. I understand the need for an investigation, but I've been very critical about this a lot on this channel, that I think the police owe it to open up their investigation so that the public can see what is happening, in particular when it happens with one of their own. I understand the need in certain cases that when it doesn't involve their own people to want to keep stuff kind of hush-hush and not confirm or deny and all that stuff. I get that there are some good policy reasons for that. But when it's one of your own people, it demands a higher level of transparency, a higher level of accountability. We want to know what's going on with this guy. What's going on with the other officers? Was there anybody else who's compromised in this thing? Was he acting alone? Was somebody else covering up for him? Why did it take a week? What was going on with the investigation? Because this is somebody who is, until a week ago, was somebody that the English people presumably thought to be a credible, competent, safety-oriented public servant, police officer. And he's not. So it kind of shakes the foundation of the police department, of the police agencies. And so I think as a public, we should be demanding that they communicate to us about the extent, what's going on with the investigation, what's happening there, rather than just keeping this stuff all under seal as they always do. So this is some more background on the story. Evening of March 12th, he's charged with kidnapping and murder. Police said the guy was taken to the hospital, 48 hours for treatment, discharged and returned back to the police. A lot of this looks like it's the same information. Here, Couzens has been remanded to custody at the Old Bailey on the 16th of March. The defendant, wearing a gray, he's supposed to appear today, 16th of March. He's wearing a gray tracksuit, appeared to have a wound on the top of his forehead, stood as the charges were put to him. He spoke only to confirm his name and personal details, sitting between two plainclothes officers in the dock. The court heard that Couzens is accused of kidnapping Everard in the area of Chatham. The chief magistrate, Paul Goldspring, said, quote, "I don't have the power to consider the question of bail. That will be considered should you wish to make an application to the court on March 16th. You are therefore remanded into custody until that date. Both charges have been sent to the Crown Court." The Met previously said Couzens joined the force in 2018, most recently served in an armed unit responsible for guarding the parliamentary estate and embassies in London. His main job was uniform patrol of diplomatic buildings, and Scotland Yard said he was not on duty at the time of the disappearance. He had been previously working at a garage run by his family. Force said Couzens was taken to a hospital for a second time in 48 hours for treatment of the head injury. He was treated in the hospital for a separate head wound, which the Met said was sustained when he was alone in his cell. So is he trying to injure himself? Is he trying to kill himself? It sounds like he's in there beating his head against the wall, and he's doing it again. So hopefully that is being dealt with. Next up, we've got Sarah Everard, a trial set for murder, accused the PC Wayne Couzens. So the judge set a hearing date for July 9th and a provisional trial date for 25th of October. So this is obviously going to be something I think is going to be in the forefront of a lot of people over there in England. The court heard the provisional trial could last up to 4 weeks. Prosecutor Tom Little, QC, said the circumstances of the case had led to a, quote, very significant and wide-ranging investigation, and more of that will be revealed, I'm sure. He told the court that the case had attracted almost unprecedented media and public attention. No bail application was made by defense barrister James Sturman, who also said legal aid was yet to be granted. So the public response to this, as he is noting, is massive there in London. Let's take a look at what's going on over there, because as we know, when people get mad at law enforcement, they have things to say about that. So let's take a look at this story, which came over from the New York Times. Banned vigil for Sarah Everard becomes a large anti-violence rally instead. What? Why would they ban a vigil over there? Thousands of people gathered in South London on Saturday for a vigil in tribute to Sarah Everard, 33-year-old marketing executive whose killing has touched off a national reckoning over violence against women despite police warnings the event would be unlawful. So the police are warning that if you protest the death of somebody that one of the police killed, that's unlawful. All right. As darkness fell, crowd growed chanting, "Shame on you," and how many more? In what became a rally against gender violence, some clapped their hands and others held tea lights and signs that read, "End violence against women," and she was only walking home. More than 30 gatherings were planned across Britain on Saturday, and what organizers hoped would convey the outpouring of solidarity and anger that Miss Everard's killing had set off this week. Thousands of women shared their stories across social media, now symbolizing an issue that many say plagues Britain. And the story goes on. Lawmakers and activists and civil rights organizations, women's rights organizations, they gathered around. Organizers, 9 women from the Umbrella Group, said the police told them that they would face fines of £10,000 or $14,000 if they went ahead with their plans. James Klingler, one of the planners, said the organizers had suggested an alternative venue. We're protesting violence against women. Are you at the rally on Saturday evening? Several protesters shouted, "Who do you protect?" at police forces. Officers forcefully removed protesters standing under a pavilion in the park, which had been turned into a memorial for Miss Everard. The Metro Police Force has been under criticism for days. On Thursday, Police Watchdog said it was investigating whether 2 officers had responded appropriately to an allegation of indecent exposure against Mr. Couzens. The officer who was charged with killing Miss Everard is suspected of having exposed himself at a fast food restaurant in South London days before Miss Everard went missing. So there it is. What happens if they just threw that out, whether they responded appropriately to an indecent exposure allegation against Mr. Couzens? So somebody already made a claim against this guy. Why wasn't he suspended? It remains unclear why he wasn't suspended. Yeah, it's a good question. The scale of the gathering on Saturday, along with the outpouring of accounts of harassment, is likely to add pressure on Boris Johnson's government, which is scheduled to unveil a plan to tackle violence against women. Lawmakers are set to debate a bill, and they're going to suggest several lawmakers have supported vigils going forward despite the restrictions. And so we've got some imagery of it. And here is one. It looks like maybe people out there with cell phones or lighters, maybe their cell phones, flashlights in support. Here is another one. A lot of people out there. Your pain is our pain. A lot of flowers. Major, major, major outpouring of love for Sarah, which is very good to see. People are kind of tired of this stuff all around the country. All around the country in England, all around the country here, people are sick of it. Scuffles break out at Clapham Common Memorial for Sarah Everard as people chant arrest your own. Yeah, police. All right, so we'll leave that out of there. YouTube doesn't like those videos, but it's not just here in the States. People are tired of cops killing people throughout the world. So England's dealing with it as well. And Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, released a full statement. It's my full statement following meeting with the Met Commissioner to discuss the policing of the vigil on the Clapham Common last night. The scenes arising from the policing of the vigil for Sarah were completely unacceptable. My thoughts remain with Sarah's family at this time. I can completely understand why women, girls, and allies wanted to hold a vigil to remember Sarah and all women who've been subjected to violence. Last week, I called on the government to work with organizers. On Friday, a high court judge made clear there was a window to agree a way for a vigil to go ahead safely. I received assurances from the Metropolitan Police last week that the vigil would be policed sensitively. In my view, this was not the case. No, we just watched the video of it. I asked the commissioner and deputy commissioner to come into City Hall today to give me an explanation of yesterday's events and the days leading up to them. I am not satisfied with the explanation they have provided. I will now be asking Her Majesty's Inspectorate of the Constabulary, totally different words over there. It's just great, to conduct a full independent investigation of events yesterday and in previous days. I'm also asking the Independent Office for Police Conduct to investigate actions of the police officers yesterday evening. It is vital that these events are not allowed to undermine the powerful calls since the murder to finally stop men from inflicting women. Criminal justice system more widely, further steps must be taken to address this. So, interesting case. You know, I have a lot of issues with, of course, the underlying story, but I have a bigger issue in many situations with the police not being transparent about what they're communicating about what's happening here. So you have the police do something wrong, and I understand that. Police do something wrong. Lawyers do something wrong. Everybody does something wrong. We're all human beings. But the bigger issue is the cover-up, or it's the lack of accountability, the lack of transparency. It's what you saw. People want to show up and show their support, and the next thing they know, they're getting threatened with $14,000 fines, and it turns into mayhem. And it's the police. And this is hot water because it's the police responding to one of their own who broke the law. And there's going to be a lot of questions about whether they properly investigated that guy for his indecent exposure allegation, whether there was any hint that it was him early on in the investigation. Did that get delayed a little bit? How did this whole thing come to be? How did they find him? Maybe we'll know more about that. Going to keep a look on this story. We have a warning over here from News Now Wyoming. Says, careful with reporting on UK issues. Their defamation laws are whack. Very easy to fall prey. Well, maybe they're going to sue me for defamation for saying that their defamation laws are whack. Can't escape it. I'll be careful with that, right? I don't want to defame anybody in America or anywhere in the world. Just want to cover the news, do some analysis, hopefully move the needle forward in helping myself and other people understand what is really going on. J-Bone, 86, J-Bone in the house says, did you see where a Green MP wants to ban men from being out after 6:30 p.m. as a result of the Everard murder? Only problem is they could identify as women. Isn't that how it works? Yes. No, I did not see that. But yes, there's always a response, right? There's always somebody who wants to do something about everything. Banning men from leaving at 6:30 p.m., I'm not sure that is the right answer to deal with law enforcement. One of their own was responsible for that. Why should all of society's men be under curfew? Sasha Shisha in the house. Haven't seen Sasha in a while. Says, took a month-ish break from politics. Hey, you're back. Yeah, it's a good one. A month break would probably be a good, nice, refreshing thing. He says, all refreshed and only to find out you have been demonetized. I know, can you believe it? Finally caught up with your videos during the weekend. Glad to be here and glad to be supporting R&R as usual. Keep up the good work. Well, Sasha Shisha, so good to have you back. I hope you are rested. A month off of politics. I don't know if I could do that, quite frankly, but it does sound nice. We're happy that you're back and with us. Thank you for that very, very nice message. We have another one from NY Renal MD. The last one in this segment says, it's time in the USA to have a discussion on removing qualified immunity and its source, sovereign immunity. People are tired of hearing how the police get the benefit of the doubt in every sense. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, qualified immunity is sort of this made up doctrine anyway. It's kind of just been written into the rules. And I think it's time to revisit that and decide whether that is something that we still want in place. Because in my opinion, I think it creates some pretty perverse incentives for law enforcement to do certain things, knowing that they're going to be immune from any prosecution or any civil liability, and they're going to be able to escape without any ounce of culpability. So I would be open to that. And it sounds like we're not alone here in the USA. I'm sure they have something similar in the UK and elsewhere around the world, and people are just sick of it. You know, the default with the police is that everything's okay and everything's right and everything's by the book and everything's transparent. And you have these very nice officers who I'm sure are good people who come out and they put on the face and they do these little statements in front of everybody and we're sorry, we're so sorry and for the family and all of this. And okay, we get it, but we want to know now. We appreciate that. We appreciate all the thoughts and prayers. We appreciate all I know you're commiserating with us. We got it. But what are you doing? What was going on with this investigation? What are your internal policies and procedures? And I don't know if I'm being overly harsh on the police in the UK. I'm just sort of extrapolating that they have the same problems that we do based on this story. And I'm sort of stereotyping how they structure their enforcement organizations over there, but largely because the U.S. is based on a lot of English law and old common law. I'm going to guess that we kind of have the same ancestor, so a lot of our justice systems have developed more or less kind of hand in hand, and that you are experiencing the same problems and frustrations that we are here in the United States.